Hello, everyone. Did you know that the Social Security Trust in the United States has estimated that they will run out of funds by the year 2035? If you would like to retire and not worry about money, whether you live in the US or anywhere on this earth, you're going to love this guest who we're talking with today. I am Andy Anderson. My partner, Ike Allen, and I are the founders of AVAIYA University and the online community Enlightenment Village. Thanks so much for joining us. And today, our fabulous guest is going to be talking about Money 2.0 and how to create wealth and not just get rich. So please welcome Ann Wilson. Hi there.
I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me on your amazing platform and to talk about this juicy subject.
I know this is an amazing subject. So and what better person to talk about it than you, who's just done, a few things in the world around this topic. So let's dive into this. Actually, first of all, would you just tell a little bit about you and like how you got into this before we start talking about money? How did you start on this journey yourself?
Yeah, I think it was so important right up front. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an accountant. I didn't get any training in finance, which I'm deeply grateful for. But what I did was which was most people's story around money, was go out there, work hard for it. Maybe the more skills you had, the better you would be able to earn. And that's maybe how you could be safe. And my father died when I was young, and I'd watched my mum struggle around this thing called money, and I never wanted to be that vulnerable. So the only thing I knew was if I could just earn okay, then I'll be okay. Almost worship at this revenue, income, side of that will then make me okay. So I studied civil engineering of all things, not because I really gave a damn about it, but because I thought that would make me safe. That was the right thing. How many people do they're going, what's the thing that's going to make me money, rather than actually, how do I live my great life and get money supporting that? Mm-hmm. So I was completely in that, money first, maybe some life later.
Right.
And all I did was slip deeply into thinking this money thing was marvelous. I managed to get a job and debt, sunk into a big debt hole. Then it was like, okay, I'm now working for everybody else than me. There's no life here. There's no freedom here. And there was just this deep call for a life expression. And I'm very grateful that somehow in that deep, uncomfortable place said there has to be a different way. So I first managed to climb out of the debt hole about really realizing that I had to choose me, and I had to make me and my freedom more important than things or stuff. And I also had to prepare to shift my focus and go, what am I prepared to do now differently that might not feel comfortable? Because so many people can go into, it's about deprivation or not have. But I think when we can shift our mindset and say, I'm doing some amazing things now to free myself, which even might feel uncomfortable. But I did that, but I suddenly emerged and realized, okay, I've now got the story of don't go into debt, earn. But I realized nowhere in any of this had I ever been taught what to do with money. And there was suddenly this realization that earning money, spending money, had nothing to do with creating wealth. There was some other whole world that I'd never been exposed to. So it really started this really awesome hunt. And in the meantime, I'd managed to get divorced, lost my marriage because everything had been about what we couldn't have it do. I had no idea really what wealthy was for me, or even who I was. What did I really want? And I really made a commitment that I wasn't prepared to do the scarcity, just try and save and hope I was going to be okay. And I also knew binging on money that I didn't have in this, I might die tomorrow mindset. Neither of those two extremes actually felt congruent, and that actually felt sustainable and life-giving. And so there was this that I chose. And so I discovered what I call the world of wealth, this world of asset-generated income, where there's these things called assets. There's something other than me could do the working. I needed to give the leadership, and then I had to get on and doing the living. And it's from broke, I'm actually in debt, to making this choice. I got to create my own financial freedom in 8 years, where I had enough assets, these investments, to have the ultimate choice, which was the freedom of choice, the freedom to live where I want, do what I want, but really freedom of purpose. And it was at that point I really started exploring, and I realized I I got more and more fascinated by the subject called money. Why weren't we taught this stuff? What are the different aspects? How to manage it? And it's not just about assets, but our relationship with it, the meaning we give to it. And so I couldn't help myself. I would start asking people about their money stuff. It's just not done in most places. And I realized there was this deep, deep desire to help others with this money, with their own money journey. And so that was then the creation of the Wealth Chef, which is the brand and the business that I now teach people around the world, and sort of the most extraordinary next adventure, which led to Hay House books and speaking around the world, and a brand new TV series, which is just starting.
Yeah.
And that's so deep at the core. I now have the deep privilege of teaching people how to be wealthy and giving them the skills, the real skills, both mindset, but the practical how-tos.
Yes, I love that. That is so, I'm so glad you said that. And I know that's a big part of your work. And I love talking about mindset as it relates to money, but if one doesn't know what to do or what actions to take, it's yes, maybe manifest, some money, but right. If you're not like knowing what to do with the money you have, right? Like you were talking about, like it's so crucial. So let's talk a little bit about really kind of the state of the world right now. I mean, we live in such an interesting time as it relates to money, definitely in our country, in the United States. And I'm sure in so many other countries, it's kind of wacky, crazy. So you talk about in your work that very few people ever actually create real sustainable financial success. So why is this?
I think the two primary reasons is, firstly, is this our education system. Our entire world is obsessed with income, with revenue, with the top line. There's that lovely saying, revenue is vanity, profit is reality, and cash flow is sanity, referring to in businesses. But it's the same in our private lives. We're taught that if we could just earn more, we'll be okay. If I can just make that bigger launch, get that bigger product, get that income coming in. And we praise income. We also perceive people's value by what they earn or what they make or they decide. So we've also deeply linked people's worthiness and their value into this. There's so much of that. And then we also believe an expression of that comes out in what people are perceived to own. So there's this complete disconnect between truly what money is meant to be and what is actually sustainable and our own worthiness. So if we fixate on income, what that leads people to do is to neglect money as soon as it comes into their life. The only other thing they're taught to do is get rid of it as fast as possible in exchange of something that they've been told by a mass media is what they need in order to be worthy.
Yes.
So this is almost like this vicious cycle that I call a money flow. It's like this just super current that just flows through people's life. Money comes in and it flows out. And most of it doesn't bring them any joy, meaning, or identity. And then they sit there almost in the starvation of worthiness and value and wealth, wondering what the hell's going on. Well, maybe if I just worked hard, if I just earned more money, if I just got that bigger car or the bigger house or the next thing, then finally I might feel okay. But it starts with this fixation of income, and whether it's in a business or personal life, when we really no, wealth is created at where we make the choice of where the money flows out of our lives, not where it comes in. And if we start giving more attention there to go, am I actually giving it any attention? Am I giving it leadership? Where is it going? And how much of that money gets to stay in my life to serve me? And of that money that gets to stay in my life, do I even know what to tell it to do? Do I know how to create an environment for it so it can thrive and grow? Because this is the big shift. If we started focusing on assets, which just simply put are things that can keep growing in value and can earn income without us having to be involved in the value exchange. So they become like this, if we just use a very simple metaphor, this extraordinary orchard of trees. If we're not planting those saplings and letting them grow, this is this orchard that we can then feed off. So, but we can really think, are we creating assets in our relationships? We can extend the metaphor, but on the financial side, if we're not creating investments in the stock market, in investment property, in low input businesses that can keep sustaining, we never break out of this slavery to money. So that's the primary reason is most people who never taught what an asset is, how to have it, and that's where our focus should be, not income.
Right.
The second primary reason is most people don't have a wealth plan. They don't know what wealth is for them. And so financial freedom, being wealthy, being rich is this very wafty around, disconnected concept. And if you have no idea what a destination is, you can't even start the journey. Right. And so most people, it just stays this abstract concept where it actually is a very tangible number. It's a very real thing, which you can put in place, anchor it, then you can know where you are, and then you can put a plan together so that it's very grounded. But most people think it's just this concept, just a way of a fuzzy feeling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. It's like the being and the doing. And that's what I love about you. Cause you're right. You take the whole thing together and then, create these real results for it. It's, if we neglect one side or the other, man, that journey is it's not going to work out as far as my experience dictates. But, so what is your definition of living a wealthy life? What does that mean to you?
So at its core, I think for me, a wealthy life is at its core is about the ultimate freedom of choice. Freedom of being able to express our lives free of obligations and restrictions and limitations. Now, of course, at level, there's always choices, always trade-offs we've got to decide, but from a financial aspect, not having to stay in a relationship because we believe that that's the only way we can be financially safe, or we have to stay in a job that's depleting us and destroying our soul because that's the only way we can keep a roof over our head. That not having that freedom of expression, of self, of agency around money. So the opposite of that is for me true wealth. But there's another step to it. So a lot of people say to me, but and how much do I need? How much money do I need to be able to, assets to have in that place? And I'll go, I haven't a clue. Because I think, Andy, one of the challenges is we don't spend enough time really having to come back and claim our agency, and our truth is what is wealthy for me? Mm-hmm. What is wealthy for you? And this starts a deeply, sometimes tough, personal inquiry where we have to strip away so much of our socialization of what has our parents told us success is, what does society, what does that magazine say, what does my friends and colleagues say, that I think each of us have a truly slightly freaky wealthy recipe. And we might think it's freaky, and so we might want to. So I think a lot of people spend a lot of things. What they do is trying to fit in, and so I think this is where the combination comes with the deep self-worth. That there's such a parallel with worthiness and wealth, mm-hmm. and that this journey of deep self-worth of claiming back what is wealthy for me. And if someone can sit in front of me and go, Anne, I want 3 Learjets, 14 private islands. I want, the biggest mega yacht ever in place. I have to wear new clothes every day. And they can really go, I've checked in on me. And that is really my truth. And there's no part of me saying that because that's what I think my Instagram feed needs to look like. Somebody's going to say you've made it. Then I go, hell yeah, let's go for it. Now we can design because now that lifestyle is going to have a price tag. Now we can work out the size of the assets you need to pay for that lifestyle. And it's going to be sizable. And somebody else might say, and you know what my real truth is? I want to live in a cottage somewhere in the countryside. I want to have my goat and grow my organic veg and make my own paints. And that's my truth. Right now, I'm churning away at a job in a city that I don't want. I go, hell yeah, if that's your truth. Now you can start stripping away all the stuff that's not yours. And so I think wealthy is that's why I say wealthy rather than being rich. I think there's a lot of people who've got a whole pile of money, but they're so disconnected from who they are. They're so trying to look for that external validation. They'll never feel wealthy. So true wealth is having an economic base that can provide the safety and the resources needed to live that express life with the internal agency and self-esteem and self-worth to be able to say, this is what I want to be doing with this one precious life. and I'm going to strip away the rest. And I think when we bring that is a wealthy life.
Oh, that's beautiful. Right. That whole, I want to be able to like quote you and pull that last little bit out, because that was just beautiful. Like, that's it, right? Everybody, we all have our own truth. We all have our own journey. No, one is not more right or wrong or whatever. We all just have our own thing. So, right, whatever that looks like for you is awesome. So that was so beautiful. So what about financial freedom? So we heard your definition of, right, what wealth is. So what's financial freedom then?
And I use them a bit interchangeably. And I think I use financial freedom because it does bring that real number in place. So wealthy, I think, is that state of being when you can actually, and so the wealthy aspect has a lot of freeing ourselves from the emotional hooks, and a lot of that coming back into worthiness and wealth, which is grounded by the financial freedom of now you're financially free when this is the value of the assets that pay for that lifestyle. So almost the wealthy part is getting really clear on what that lifestyle is and how you're going to manage that money, and how does it relate to your perceived sense of your own worthiness. And knowing that actually the more you can uncouple your worthiness from your money stuff, the more your money can do its work, because it's not bogged down by your crap. So you're financially free when there's this value of assets. So once you know the price tag of your wealthy life, you can then take that and then calculate the size of the assets. And so so you're financially free when you've also got a mix of assets. And this is super important, especially right now, everybody's like, what's going on in the world? The market's going to crash, and this is the Chinese or Trump or this or that, what's going on? It's really important we also have diversification. So now financially free is when there's start becoming this real practicality of what do these assets look like? How do you invest in the stock market? I love the stock market. I just think it's one of the sexiest, coolest, easiest asset class. Most people go, oh my God, it sounds investing. And I go, no, that's what the financial industry wants you to think. It's so much easier. So it's just owning slices of other people's businesses and benefiting from them. So you want to have a diverse portfolio in that. You want to be looking at fixed asset classes. So those are tangible things like investment property. And again, that's a huge range. It could be anything from a shipping container that you rent out for storage to a whole apartment block for families to an entire retail park. That's just those fixed assets. Low input businesses, thinking how do you use other people's time, systems, processes to do the value exchange that you're not involved in. And so you're financially free that when not only do you have these assets providing an income, but when they also are diversified enough that no matter what happens in the markets, you're not at risk.
Right.
So wrapped around that also things like insurances, like trusts, like having a will. These all become part of your financial freedom because it's also being free of financial anxiety. And that's really important. And understanding how there's this ecosystem, this financial ecosystem, that when you just understand the components together and you have that in place, oh my God, you can then get on and live your wealthy life because you understand the role that each of them play.
I love it. Thank you. Yes. And absolutely the diversification, one of the big things that we do in addition to AVAIYA is real estate. And it's so fun because there's so many different, right? Like you in the stock market, right? There's all these little areas like, right. You mentioned storage container, right? Shipping container for storage and renting it out. Like there's so many creative ways to make money.
There's so many money myths for people to break. When people go, oh, you need a lot of money. It's complicated, or it's going to be scary, or it's dangerous, or you've got to expose yourself to high leverage. All of those myths, it's so important we start exploring and breaking them through. So just in real estate, you don't even have to own property to benefit from it. And I think this, as we start shifting and going into the world of wealth, there's we've got to be open to consider maybe what I have been taught or I believe about money, making money, assets, investing, that none of it's true. And you just mentioned real estate. I mean, just as a practical example, because I think it's important, not just stay at the esoteric 50,000 level, is there's a strategy called rent to rent, which I really love for people who go, and I'm maxed out. I'm currently blitzing my consumer debt. I've got my wax on, wax off investment you told me there. Now what? I want to accelerate, but I don't know how to get into investment property. Go rent to rent. You can rent units from somebody, pay a certain amount, and then using service accommodation, Airbnb, Booking.com, any of those sites, you can rent them out, get a higher premium. You get to keep the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not a long-term asset, but these are ways that you can add liquidity and fuel into that rent to rent. Maybe you've got 3-4 rent to rent units. They can now be buying you your stock market investments,
Right.
which then can buy you your buy-to-let property or your multifamily unit. And so you start seeing, and it gets so exciting, sexy, that your assets buy your assets. And this is a big shift for most people when they realize that, because often people will work out their financial freedom number and they'll go, oh, shit. You know, that out for, and go, I wish I never did this, because it can seem like a huge number. But because we've again caught into this, I've got to earn it and I've got to save it mentality. Your assets, once you get them going, create good 90% of your financial freedom. You're learning just how to become this farmer, the creative assets. And I think when we can shift that, our whole way of thinking, to go, how do I create an asset? And at its core, an asset is just something that delivers value, which even comes to the next step. If we truly understand money is just an exchange of value. So if you're constantly going out of the world and go, how do I add value? What a beautiful way to be.
Right. Absolutely. As a quick side note for everybody, if you are hearing Anne's fabulous furry friends in the background, what do you call them? Furry babies? Right. Like, we were joking before we got on this call that we both have our furry babies and they make noises sometimes. So that's just part of, right?
Yeah, that's not anybody being killed. That's actually my cat telling me she's hungry. But this is the joy of freedom, you know, that again, can do this from anywhere in the world. I mean, obviously that's technology, but technology has also completely transformed access to wealth. You know, a good even 20 years ago, the opportunities for people to invest, create assets, the barrier of entry was so much more than today. And there's so much, we just got to catch up with technology. The internet has created unprecedented access to creating assets, financial well-being, investments. But this is where the mindset becomes super important. It's all there, but if we're still stuck in a mindset of, yes, and I'll start investing when I've got my business sorted. No, when I've got the kids sorted and out of school, then. I'm going, no. You've got to get it now, because we've got to shift. There is a learning curve. There's a new way of being that we've got to get our mind to. And that's why there's an urgency. But technology has made it so accessible.
Absolutely. So you mentioned mindset being obviously so important, right? We're talking about practical tools and tips and assets and all these things, but we're also talking about mindset. So one thing that I find a lot of, and I'm sure you do too, and a lot of people watching might relate to this, is if you haven't started yet, if you're $100,000 in debt and you don't have any savings or assets or anything, like, it can be pretty overwhelming, I think, for people. But I also see a lot of people just kind of in denial that they need to do something about it, and it scares me, like, because of what's going to happen, what is going to happen come 30, 40, 50 years down the road when someone has a health issue where, you know, it's just a little bit of a dicey subject. So I guess what's your take on that? Like, helping people get that, right? Okay, got to do something about it. Got to start, you know, getting things organized here.
Andy, you've just hit such a beautiful side, and I think such a fine line, because I don't like to try and get all drama queen or use the fear mongering. But the reality is, the stats and the reality out there, especially for women, is devastating. It breaks my heart. It's one of the things that makes sure I get up every day, and I'm so really passionate about this, because it is terrifying. 2 out of 3 women, and this is in the developed world, where we've had more abundance, more exposure to opportunity, will in their lifetime have to rely on the charity, the handout of either their kids, neighbor, family, or strangers, just to survive. I'm not talking about thriving. I'm not talking about going on the worldwide cruise. I'm talking about just food and shelter. 2 out of 3. And so I think this disconnect between what's going on and what could be coming down the line, it's so important that we talk about it, because it doesn't have to be that way. But denial is one of the greatest things. And I think a huge part of this is there's so much shame around money. It's such a topic where we either think we're not meant to talk about it, religion, family, socialization, it's a sort of a dirty word. So there's a lot of confusion and suppression. There's also a lot of shame around, like, shit, if I've got into debt or this, or I've messed up, or I've lost some money, or my business hasn't worked, or maybe I had a codependency thing in a relationship and I let all that money go. And so there's these bags of shame that get run. And that is so shame is one of the biggest things that lead people to go into denial and hide. And so the more we can talk about it, so the very first step is to just go, we are where we are.
Right.
We spoke about starting that journey. We can't start anywhere other than where we are. And so there's almost this cathartic side to say, find a safe place, find an environment, find a community, or even just yourself to go, I'm okay. Whatever has got me to this point is fine. I cannot change it. But what I can do is I can make a choice today. And I need to. There's an urgency. Because if you can see that track, if you don't have some assets growing for you, if that debt is just pulling you down, you're in shit.
Yeah.
There's no other way to say it. But it doesn't have to stay that way. But you do need to make a shift fast. There's an urgency, because to gain traction for these assets, it needs time, it needs energy. Like anything, it needs to grow. And so the first thing is just one, deep compassion, to know that it's impossible to be human and adult and not have money shame, to not have messed up in some way. I mean, hello.
Yep.
We're not taught this stuff. Most of us flounder around in it. Money and sex are the two big, and I think money even more so now than sex. And so first that compassion, then to say, okay, where am I? And it can feel as scary as hell, but when we start really practicing the knowledge and the knowing that my net worth is not my self-worth. Disconnect. Right. Money, me. Money, me. Not the same thing. Even though we're told by our whole society that they're all interwoven. Then it's to start again, and this is my blackboard, I teach on it, but there's 4 quadrants that we need to look at. We need to look at, where's our money coming in from? That's the income, and where's it going to? Our outflow, our expenses. You've got to know that money flow. Most people are so disconnected from it. We've got to get intimate with it. We've got to just spend a little bit of time and start, even if you just look for 1 week, if it feels scary, then look for a month, because you're going to start seeing patterns and it starts telling a story. So this is the flow. Then there's the bottom part, which is more of what is the result of your past money behaviors, is a thing called your balance sheet. And this is the sum of your assets, your investments, versus your liabilities, the things you owe. And the difference between these two is your net worth. Your net worth becomes your new North Star. No longer income. Net worth is the thing that's telling you how you're doing. So you've got to see where you are. You've got to just go, it is what it is, because now you can start making a plan. And if, having done that, you go, wow, my liability drawer is a little bit fuller than I want it to be. There's a bit, interesting. And again, just use the word fascinating a lot of the time rather than judging and shaming. Then you can say, great, that's where I need to focus. Let's learn a snowball debt blitzing strategy. Let's get excited about it. And I think when we can keep coming back and going, I'm choosing to dive into this world that maybe I don't feel comfortable in, learn a little bit step by step. All I need to do is do a step by step, because I value me. When we can see it as an act of deep self-love, of reclaiming agency, of giving ourselves, not necessarily for the mega yacht, but just for our freedom, peace of mind, to let go of that fear. There's 2 huge fears that most people have. One is the money running out before they do.
Yep.
So basically, and then the second one is losing the money they have. And so the freedom is going, I can learn this stuff. I can do something about it, and I can just do it in a step-by-step way. So I think, and that is the first step, is we've just got to get real.
Yeah.
And drop the judgment and the shaming, go, cool. And then get some energy around it, and then learn, get some support. Not taught this stuff, just learn. And then if you see that, oh, my asset draws crickets, it likes a big, cavern in there, cool, I need to start maybe learning how to get some assets in.
Right.
And hey, I can start with $50 a month in a regular investing in an index tracker. I can start with smaller amounts. I think this is really important, is not waiting for big amounts. And I can be doing that whilst I'm getting to grips with my debt. It's just, you've got a plan, then it's implementing it.
Thank you. That's also amazing. And I hope everyone watching right now, if you do have shame around money, or maybe you're in debt, or you lost a bunch of money in the past, like just get it. Like, we're all human. We've all had I've had my stories of, like losing money back in my 20s. Like it happens. Most of us have had some kind of experience that maybe we're not proud of, but be kind to yourself and get that right. You can come to a community like this or work with Anne, and you can start this process and be in action. So,
and because even quite a useful thing, and I'll get a lot of my debt blitzing peeps to do, is write your old money story and write it in the third person. Write it out. Go, Anne stole toilet paper from her employer because she had run out of money by week 3 because she was paying off all that debt she had got herself, trying to fit into, and then drop the judgment. As soon as you start the judgment, cross that out. But sometimes just writing it out in third person, getting it out there, and you go, oh, it's not so bloody scary.
Right. Yep. And again, like, you're not alone. Everyone has their money story. Anne just told you hers, right? Like, we've all got creative, interesting stories from our, it's all good. So, what's Money 2.0 specifically?
I think I'm really excited about what I'm calling Money 2.0. I think there's a consciousness rising. There's a whole evolution happening where we're starting to say, hang on, what is our relationship with consumption and custodianship around resources and sustainability and worthiness and wealth? And what does that mean for just now, future? Where does it be? And where do we also get our own sense of well-being from a centered place, knowing that actually, for me, Wealth 2.0, Money 2.0 is also about that we're starting this shift over that it's just about what can I have, this own. And I think Money 2.0 is far more openness, is far more really understanding there is enough. And I think for me, there's this beautiful path that our true wealthy life sits on this extraordinary, I think it's a very narrow line, what I call our own enoughness, where we are each walking between these two big mountains, one of scarcity and fear, where we're bombarded that there isn't enough, there's not enough space, there's not enough jobs, there's not enough money, there's not enough resources, we're going to run out of food and water, and so we've all got to be afraid, and let's build walls and lock people out, and everybody's scary, and the stock market's going to crash, so better we hoard here. Versus this other big mountain of almost the mountain of more, that we need more, that it has to be more. We've got to supersize everything. And so if you've got a house this size, you need the bigger one. That's the next obvious evolution. So if you've got one car, you must have 2 cars. And there's this place in between, knowing that neither of those are true. That our own worthiness, we are already just intrinsically, by the fact that we have a breath, worthy of life. So how do we come to life as an expression of worthiness? And what do we choose to do with this privilege of being custodians of the resource called money as an expression of life, as an expression of enough, of worthiness? And so I think we're seeing what's starting to evolve in this is a lot more of the shared economy. To go, hey, I don't have to own something to get benefit of it. So I think we're starting to have more thoughts and conversations around usership rather than ownership. Right. That do we really want to be in a big house where half of the rooms are empty gathering? That's what we'd not rather be in, some kind of maybe. So things like, I'm not saying it's for everybody, but the tiny house movement, the aspects of far more consciousness around how do I want to be in my relationship with energy, life, resources, and going from an attitude of dominion over and power and demonstrated by what I can own and have and how much can I consume, versus a deep privilege of being a custodian of the resources around us, including our earth, our land. And I think our money has become, is a modern day reflection of, we've agreed it as an exchange of value. And I think, a lot of people say, well, Anne, why do I not only choose to work and have a business and teach this when I've been financially free? I mean, I'm my 14th year of being financially free, but why do I also choose to keep growing my net worth and invest? Because I see it as a privilege and a skill set to be a custodian of money. Because as I can bring more energy to that, I think there's this rising 2.0, the more conscious people that we can have economically empowered, the more of the power or the resource of this thing called money we can direct to things to start rebalancing so much of the imbalance that's been come from this huge era of where we thought the name of the game was who could consume the most.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That's
Money 2.0.
I love it. Yeah, it's amazing, in the journey of money. And I will say it's a pretty beautiful experience to have when you're no longer concerned with your own and survival and all that stuff. How just, it seems to me like the immediate reaction is okay, awesome. How can I help people? How can I help people learn this stuff? This is no place to live being all freaked out about it all the time. It's not fun.
No, because when we're living in that anxiety, it's completely impossible to be our authentic selves when our nervous system is just in fight or flight.
Right. Absolutely. So you may have touched on this already, but if not, you can tell me or say you already have. But what is the biggest myth you see about people in the thought of creating wealth?
Yeah, I think the myth is believing, what they focus on, not having a plan and focusing on income. But I think that there's some real barriers that, and one of the big ones is, and the story that I hear over and over and over again, I've left it too late. I've left it too late. Some kind of story that there's not enough time. So this real scarcity monster triggers really in two primary ones. Not enough money, not enough time. And they really are just coming from that place that is terrified of even wanting to hope, wanting to believe that actually there could be a different way. And so I'm just calling them, the BS excuses, but maybe a bit more compassion about it. I share that I became financially free in 8 years from complete ignorance to focusing this, not because it's about some race, and because you've got to get there, but hopefully show people, what is that time? I also know that what I know now, if I were to lose everything, I reckon I could get back to full financial freedom, have assets in place within about 3 years. But that's not just about but I think to me, the most insidious story people use is, I've left it too late. And I go, but left it too late for what? You've got life. Surely our journey here on this entire life is to find a way for us to come back to wholeness, to come back to our self and worthiness. And this is just part of getting into right relationship with money, finding a way to let go of all this fear and limitations that I can't have and sacrifice so that you can fully express yourself. It's something you'll do till you slide sideways into a grave or, flop out there, whatever it is, however you could spin off this mortal coil. So that story of not enough time or not enough money, I think is one of the most insidious stories. And to let go, too late for what? I've worked with people who started this journey at 78. I loved it. Because where do we have this? We are told, it's as though we are also indoctrinated that our life is a very linear journey. We have a phase of time where we sort of grow and learn some life skills, and then we go to school and we learn bits, and then maybe you go into college or some kind of tertiary education to learn our skill to earn money. Then you then you accumulate like crazy. and maybe get anxious about money and work like crazy and get into debt and do whatever. And then maybe there's a few years of retirement where you go off and do a few things that you want to do and maybe a few cruises, and then you shuffle off the mortal coil. That is so yesterday. That's a story. It's not even yesterday. That's a story from the 1940s. That isn't the reality. Most people will have 3, 4, 5 careers, will have multiple portfolio lives. Our money will come through all the story that we've only got this limited period between 25 and 45 to make money. It is complete fallacy. So I think this is like such, if we can just change that BS and go, let's find the people. Let's find, the Louise Hay who, only started Hay House in her late 60s too. I mean, there's so many model people. Why the hell? I never dreamed I would have a bloody TV series. I never dreamed I'd go create a multi-million business teaching people about money. I used to build railways, for heaven's sake, So I think this is part of the breaking free of the limitation that we've got one path.
Right.
And that, I think, it's that thinking which is so devastating, because it also stops us expressing our wealthy life, which is expansive and amazing, and be curious and play. And that's what's, I think, so key to all of this.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yes. And I love that, right, you share the story of someone who's 78 and starts this journey. It is never too late. Absolutely not. Like, no way. You can always start this journey, right? Like you say, coming back into your own wholeness and authenticity, and absolutely it is. And it can be an amazing journey and a fun, exciting journey also. So it's not all just, oh God, now I got to go on this journey.
No, yeah. And it's not about now I'm not allowed my cappuccino and deprivation. I think that's a really, really big thing. We've also got to break that, being good with money is about deprivation. Often people say, oh, and I spent money on X, Y, and Z, and almost like this guilty side. I'm going to go, did you get value from it? Did you enjoy it? Oh, yes. I don't know. Yes. It's all the shit that you spend to try and please people who you don't even know is flowing out your life. Those are the rats in the pen. That's the shit we want to plug.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been, oh my God, such an amazing conversation and so valuable to, I hope, everybody watching. And so a couple of things before we get wrapped up here. There are a couple buttons below this video and they lead over to 2 free gifts you have for everybody. So what are these things?
Well, I'm thrilled. So I'm gifting everyone a money makeover. So this is a 30-day little snippet a day, because your wealth is created by baby steps, just consistently applied. So I want you to get comfortable with it. And every single day for 30 days, I'm going to cover all the different elements of this amazing ecosystem called creating your wealthy life. Unpacking maybe the scary jargon that all you felt either boring or whatever. So you're going to get that. You're going to learn about what assets to be investing in, managing your debt, managing your money, getting in and out of this. It's such a cool program. Little video, everything bite-sized chunks, so you can let go of that excuse that I don't have the time. So there we go. Do that. And then when you're ready to say, okay, Anne, I want to start expanding my asset drawer. Tell me about these assets, index trackers, stock market investing. I've got a fantastic webinar training, which is called The Savvy Investor. So I'm going to teach you about what actually is investing, what are assets, which are the assets to start investing in first, and how to do that so you get going and start creating this juicy pile of assets that work for you. So there you go, 2 free gifts. Money Makeover is going to cover the broad base. And Savvy Investor, we're going to get that asset drawer filling up.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much. And that's awesome that you're willing to give away all of that great stuff. And please, everybody, if this is touching you, resonating with you, like dive in. You can't go wrong. This is just so important. And clearly you're in great hands with Anne, and she is this loving, fabulous person to help you along your journey. So thank you so much for doing this and being here. And are there any last insights, anything else you want to leave people with before we wrap up?
I think allow this to be fun and easy. Approach this as an adventure of going into this extraordinary, just new land. Have curiosity, have lightness around this. And it's just going to make it so much more joyful and fun. And know that being in a right relationship with abundance and money is our natural state. That's where you're heading. Being in anxiety and fear and stress is not where you're meant to be. So enjoy the ride.
Thank you. Thank you, Anne. I appreciate all your work and for being with us here today and sharing all of your amazing wisdom with everybody.
Back at you, and just so love what you create and do. And so it's just such an honor to be here.
Yes, it's awesome. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into this latest class with Anne, and we will see you on the next one. Bye, everybody. Hey, everyone. I just wrapped up another great class with Anne Wilson, and she talked with us about Money 2.0 and how to create wealth and not just get rich. I really love Anne. One of my favorite things about her is she creates this amazing balance between the mindset that is so crucial for us to get right around money, right? It's so much about our thoughts and our beliefs and how we feel about money and the stories that we hold on to from our past. So mindset is so key. And she gives people practical, applicable steps that they can take in order to build wealth. This is asset generation. This is investing. This is not only making money, but where are you going to put the money so that it is at work for you, right? Creating that residual income, that financially free life. So I just love that she creates that balance for us and gives us both ends of the stick. So a couple things I want to mention are, wherever you are right now, we talked about this, wherever you are right now, just acknowledge where you are. Maybe you have millions of dollars in the bank and you're just looking to find new ways to invest that money and become more wealthy in whatever is true for you. Or maybe you are, you don't have money in the bank and you are in massive debt. It doesn't matter. Wherever you are, just please acknowledge where you are. That is the only way you're going to take these inspired actions in order to get to where you're going, right? To get onto this journey with yourself in your life. So just very important to acknowledge where you are and know that you're not alone. It really sucks to not have money. It really sucks to be, in a place of scarcity and fear. I know this personally. I have been there. And, if you are inspired by Anne's work, I highly, highly recommend that you join with her and work with her in whatever way that you can so that you can start really living into your truth and to whatever that wealthy life is for you. So I hope you enjoyed this latest class, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.